Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Drummond, and I am one of the workshop coordinators with Ohio Educational Theater Association. And we're glad that you guys are joining us tonight for our first in our series of Back to School PD, Getting Your Theater Program Online. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Matt Wolfe and Jason Hamen about some of the beginning ideas of creating a virtual show. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite Matt and Jason to unmute and come on screen and turn it over to Matt.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Wolfe. I teach at Westerville South High School, located in Westerville, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus. And I've been on the Ohio Thespian Board for 6 years, serving mostly in the role of higher education liaison and working with the individual events, which are now the Thespi Awards. And I'll go ahead and turn it over and let Jason introduce himself as well.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Hamen, and I am the Director of Theater at Centerville High School in Southwest Ohio. I've been at Centerville High School, which is a large high school in Ohio, for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I taught at a much smaller high school in the area for about a dozen years. So I'm kind of looking at things from two different angles, if you will.
And we're really excited to have you sort of on this journey with us through these PD sessions we're offering. And so this is just one that's going to start generating questions, giving ourselves permission to be human, and being able to bounce some ideas off of one another. So I'm going to get started here first by sharing with you here. All right.
Hey, Matt, while you're getting this up, I am going to say one thing. Some people are saying they're having trouble hearing. So I'm going to work on trying to see if I can turn the volume up on this end. And the other thing is there is a Q&A feature. We have the chat. I am monitoring the Q&A feature. So if you guys have questions or anything for Matt and Jason as we go along, we're going to kind of come back together at the end, and I'll be feeding them some of those questions. So just put them in that Q&A box as we go.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we're entering the virtual age, and these are some of my thoughts about what we have come to know as the new normal. Setting the scene and embrace the chaos. So my first bit of advice, or what I want to give everyone permission to do, is to stop apologizing for the fact that things aren't the way that they are supposed to be, or the way that we see as normal. I think that, I don't know about everyone's experience, but for me, I start every professional development session I have by my administrators or the district officials or the teachers wanting to level with us, right? Wanting to get on the same common ground. But every meeting starts with, I'm so sorry that this is how we're starting. And I think that we are doing the opposite of what theater educators and theater makers do, which is to inspire and excite, and bringing that energy down from the get-go already sets the tone that whatever we're about to talk about isn't going to be good, or isn't going to be as good as it could be. So stop apologizing. Everyone knows it sucks a little bit. And then start moving forward with, here's what we are going to do. I'm spending this year to teach film and TV. Now, I took 1.5 TV film courses in college, and that was going on almost 20 years ago. But that basic, simple knowledge that I have, combined with what's out there on the internet, has given me the ability to let the students use their cameras, let the students use their ability to tell stories, which they're already doing in 30-second increments on TikTok and whatnot, and make sure that they understand that theater is just storytelling, and it's just a vehicle to push us forward. And storytelling is the oldest form of communication. It's not going to stop. regardless of the restrictions put on us. Don't underestimate your students. I talked to some teachers at the end of spring, and they were really defeated, really felt down in the dumps about themselves. And they had come up with some video ideas that they thought were going to be so exciting, and the kids were going to be so onto it. And honestly, what happened when we took the lesson plans and started to dissect them, what we learned is that what the students were doing, or what they were asking the students to do, was so simple compared to what they do trying to edit a video and lay text and fonts and pictures over it. So make sure that you don't underestimate what your students are capable of. And there's always easy ways to scaffold so that, you know, when you're talking about access and you know, depending on what accessibility students have to the different equipment, but basic things on their phone, make sure that you're not giving them a 5-minute presentation just for that length. They can put just as much effort into a minute and a half and pop that content out in a way that maybe we wouldn't expect. Cut some slack on yourself. Understand that we are starting over. We all went to college, we got our degrees, never once did they make us do content over a computer. And so what we've spent so much time garnishing our reputations in our schools and our communities, those aren't going to go away because a play or a musical isn't as good as it usually is. Watching the kids be engaged, watching the community come together to do something despite the odds stacked against them, it will be a success. And I think I found myself in the beginning of my own journey trying to put out virtual theater. I spent too much time comparing and living in that place of like, oh, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. At the end of the day, that feeling when the cast and the crew come together and everyone's excited about the fact that they told a story and now we're giving it to people. And then the story started rolling in about grandma and grandpa in Colorado and my aunt who lives in France on a scholarship, you know, and all of a sudden more people in their lives got to watch them work. And that became it should have been obvious, but it became a very unexpected, wonderful byproduct. Embrace the technology. Don't be afraid of it. Again, we tell our students every day that it's okay to fail, that theater is all about failing, picking yourself back up and starting again. This has given me the opportunity to be in front of my students and be vulnerable and say, I'm going to try, and it might fail, and I might cut off our connection mid-sentence, and if it does, try the link again, I'll start it over again. I have been able to find a sense of humor in myself, and it's helped me again relate with my students and know what they feel when I'm releasing something new to them. All of a sudden, I'm the most popular person in Ohio. So please allow yourself to fail, to get back up, to try again, and ask your students for help. I found some really undercover kiddos who know how to edit and know how to lay tracks, and approaching them or being able to recognize that they might have this skill has been a great blessing, and it's provided leadership that normally they wouldn't have ever thought that they could have in the theater. The last couple of things I think again are obvious, but advocate and build community. I think it is so important right now that we are not the voices of theater can't happen, because what our school boards and our districts have to reevaluate, pandemic is now part of our vocabulary. It will become part of our professional development. It will become part of theater or teacher education. And we're going to have to evolve. And if we can't, or if we won't, what's going to happen is we're going to become expendable, and we're going to keep fighting the same fight and just turning our wheels. So yes, I have many insecurities, and in front of my theater colleagues, I'm happy to share those with you. And that's what I want this to be. When I'm at my school and I'm the only theater teacher in the district of 3 high schools and I bounce, I act like I've got it all under control. I am excited because at the base of it, I am. The students still want to come and they want to build community. And this gives me an opportunity. I don't know who else in their school districts are focusing on social emotional learning right now, SEL learning. It's become a big, education buzzword of the year. And what's funny about it is, as you know, it's what we're all about. It's probably why we're all in theater education, to tap into the social and emotional stuff that kids don't get to develop. And we have that vehicle. So what we do is so naturally ingrained to what the math teachers and the science teachers are trying to incorporate into who they are. So I've been able to use my theater classes as an avenue for the kids to do public service announcements about washing your hands, and that goes out to the school, or how to honor the seniors before they graduate in a virtual graduation, and then that goes out to the school. And all of a sudden my classes are fulfilling some sort of void because no one gets to see the students. And so it's helping the teachers, and it's really, without me doing too much extra, it's making theater really look like something that is weathering the storm. And so that is really the pinnacle of where I wanted to get with Jason tonight, and start really making sure that we're advocating for ourselves, bragging about what we already do, and staying positive in light of all of this. And of course, I end everything with a little bit of love, because we need to love. My last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jason, is some ideas about when you go into production, what's the next step? So I encourage you all to look at taking a cinematic approach. The first project that I did, I looked at as a show. We're going to talk about a project I did this summer that combined all 3 high schools. We did the virtual production of She Kills Monsters, and a lot of insecurities about the show, but what was great is that I started. I had my last bullet point here. You have to get started. And so I did. And I looked at it as a show, and we ran it from top to bottom every day once we got into production time. We should have done scenes, look at everything like a movie, have the students concentrate on a small chunk, put it in the books, get it done, and then move on. It'll be exciting for them because they've never done it that way. And it'll be less stress of knowing, of thinking that the student is rehearsing by themselves an entire play every night. Set a timeline, but don't be crazy about it. Know that your show's gonna premiere in November, and then when it gets closer, set that premiere date. Nobody's making plans, so you're going to be okay with allowing yourself some grace. Adjust expectations of yourself. Know that you guys are awesome, and everyone's going to love the work you do because you're doing it with their kids. So allow yourselves. Collaborate. Find people on these PDs across the country, around the world, down the street, and figure out how students can get together and create. Take the pressure off your plate and put some minds together and let them go. And lastly, get started. And so with that, I'll let Jason get started.
Hey, thanks, Matt. This is like good positive stuff. So it's a perfect way to start all this off. I'll kind of echo what Matt is saying. I don't think any of us are experts at this point in our fields or in our process of where we are. And so this is our chance to really experiment and try some things out and see what happens. And when it doesn't work, we'll pick ourselves back up and try something different. That's what we do every day. So I'm going to touch on some resources today and some tips and hints that you can take with you out into this process, and some things that you can try out or experiment with or discuss with your students. And Matt's ready to jump in with his experience as well. I will say up front, I am not an expert in this field, and so I have done my homework and collected a lot of information and attended some webinars and looked at some resources, and that's where all of this is coming from tonight. So these notes that I'm sharing with you are 99% somebody else's thinking, and I'll try to give credit as best I can to where it came from. But just know that information is out there ready for us to own and to bring into our classrooms. So I want to start with just some general resources that you can use moving forward. For those of you who are members of the Educational Theater Association, and if you haven't yet taken a look at it, go to Theater Educator Pro. It's in the resources section of the webpage, and it is a database of all sorts of different things, not just virtual performances, although there's a lot of info there. It has things for your classroom. It has topics on assessment. It is searchable, so you can look for whatever topics you might find. When you look for the virtual performance information, you're going to find some nice tips. There's some good webinars there ready to go. So it's a great place to just explore and see a little bit of what's out there. One of the webinars that I've enjoyed a lot is called Creating Live Zoom Theater. And this comes to us from a company in Portland called Zoom Theater, and their director, Patrick Nims, who gave an overview of their production of the Scottish play, talked about what was successful, what was unsuccessful, and gave a lot of tips of how they made it happen and what they did. So I would highly recommend Creating Live Zoom Theater, that webinar. It just has lots of good information to work with. You can also view their production if you go to the website. The link is there. Now Hear This is available also if you're looking for the webinar that goes with it. It's called The Show Must Go Online. And Susan Blackwell is one of our presenters. She's coming in on September 16th, and she will talk more in depth about her process. But you can watch this webinar, Show Must Go Online. If you click on this link later on in the slides, it'll get you to the resources that you're looking for. And it's a really great overview of how they made the online production happen at Orange County School for the Arts, talking about adapting the show to be a virtual performance, and then a lot of things that worked for them. Educational Theater Association released some guidelines this summer for producing theater under our current conditions. So that's a great starting point. I think the biggest takeaway for me when I read that document was something is better than nothing. That no matter where you are, no matter where you're starting, doing something moves us forward, and doing nothing doesn't. For those teachers who are with us from Ohio, the Ohio Alliance for the Arts released guidelines for all arts programs. Included in that is a document specifically for theater. And the theater document references music and dance as well, with some guidelines for in-person instruction, especially for safety. So that's worth taking a look at. If you are somebody who is working in person, whether that's rehearsal or performance, you might want to kind of invest some time looking at the International Coalition for Performing Arts aerosol study out of the University of Colorado. That was the big study this summer that our instrumentalist friends and vocal music friends were looking at to kind of gather some data about transmission and about space and about protection. And lastly, in my resource list is Apples and Oranges. They're a production company that has committed to releasing all of their virtual content, their process, online. So they're a great resource for kind of exploring how they are doing things and some of the tips that they've found as they've developed their virtual world. Some resources for video editing. Let's talk about some apps that are out there. Hopefully these are ones that are available through your school. If you want to contact your technology department, see what they have to offer, or do some exploring on your own and then report back to them. I will share that these are the ones that I have found work for me. And Matt, you might have other ideas about worked for you if you want to jump in on those. But it, like any app, you're going to have to invest some time to learning it, to watching some YouTube videos to get familiar. So I just want to highlight a few of them that I think are worth exploring. WeVideo is my best friend of the summer. WeVideo and I spent a lot of long days together figuring things out and making things happen. What I like about WeVideo is it's very intuitive. It's very easy to follow. It's easy for our students to use. It's easy for people who are new to video editing to use. It's a great tool. You can layer multiple video tracks, multiple audio tracks, They have transitions. There's a music and sound library. So lots of things there. WeVideo allows you to resize. So I think one of the questions that comes up a lot on our Facebook groups is how do you make the Brady Bunch style composite with multiple videos? And WeVideo will let you resize videos so you can kind of like stack them in your window. It does integrate with Google Classroom for those of you who may be using that. And Google Drive as well. You can download your videos directly to Google Drive. If you're a Canvas teacher, it'll integrate with that as well. And even just for everyday instructional purposes, WeVideo has a recorder built in, so you can record instruction, upload it, edit it if you wish, and have it ready to go. I see WeVideo as being very useful for our pre-recorded productions, not so much for live performance, but for something that you've taken the time to assemble the scenes and put things together. If you are able to invest in the subscription version of WeVideo, the one that I've been looking at is the $7.99 per month single seat version. So you purchase a seat in WeVideo, and if you have maybe 10 students, then you purchase 10 seats. They can all collaborate on those projects together, add content, edit together. And the seats are transferable as well. So you can switch out who those students are, maybe once a project is finished or once a certain team is done with what they need. Another kind of on the video end of things is OBS Studio. OBS Studio is pretty user-friendly as well. It's built as a switcher for multi-camera shots so that you can preview what's going to go onto the screen before it actually gets there. This integrates really well with YouTube Live. So if you're streaming through YouTube, then it's a way for you to just upload directly into your YouTube Live stream. OBS does have some good transitions for fading in between scenes. They have a really nice studio view so that you can preview your content before it goes live. And they also have a function where you can resize your windows. So if you wanted picture-in-picture, or if you wanted to work out one of those composite Brady Bunch style films, then you've got that option too. What I like about OBS is its ability to bounce between different formats. So when we were building our event last spring, we used OBS to not only have live shots with Zoom, but also to then bring in recorded content. So it's an easy way to kind of go back and forth between those things. Matt was talking about teaching film and teaching TV. This is a great tech tool for teaching that kind of TV studio experience, or giving our kids a starter on what that kind of direction feels like, or what that kind of process feels like to build live television, or to get that product out. Another tool that's out there is Kdenlive. It is entirely free, but it's also pretty complex. You need a little bit of time to take this one in. The learning curve here can be pretty big. It's highly customizable. So if you know what all of these little things do when you're looking at this image here and you recognize some of that, you'll be fine with Kdenlive. But otherwise, there are some good video tutorials out there to kind of get you started figuring things out. But it's definitely one that's going to get you to the more intricate side of filmmaking, and those kind of fine-tuning sorts of things that you might not find in a more user-friendly version. So this might be useful if you are taking on a major film editing project, if you're looking for something to replace your computer's software that's a little bit more advanced, or for something that's more challenging.
I echo your sentiment about WeVideo. At first I went away from WeVideo because it's what the school has, and I was like, it'll be too basic and there's no way. But then trying to jump into anything else ended up being like way over my head. So I love what you had to say about WeVideo and those and the links you had about it. I found out that the single seats were good, and I found my booster, like the PTO in the school, actually paid for the seats. And so that was nice. And they, and then when we were done with it, they cut it off. It ended up being like 2.5 months. So it was not a huge expense for them. And, I'm finding that places around town, communities, individuals are willing to give right now. They just want to know exactly where their money's going and what the product's going to be. So this tech stuff is such a great selling tool for the arts right now, because we don't usually ask for technology. We're usually asking for costumes and props and makeup and money just to survive. So someone buying, technology for the arts, I think, is a great thing right now. So I love it. And this Caden Live, my students now, some of them have taken on, and they started, I have a student that's going down this path, and then a student who's in the Adobe Premiere Suite.
Oh, yeah.
And totally above me, but I learn stuff every time I'm with them. So it's good.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I have only one resource to share with you for graphics or publicity. And the reason that I'm only sharing one is because I really like it. I think it's awesome, and it does everything that I needed to do. The app is called Canva. And if you're not familiar with Canva yet, it is a free app, but you can upgrade to the pro version. I'll talk about that in a moment as well. But it is entirely free. What's nice about Canva is it has a gigantic library of graphics and templates and products that are already sized for your Instagram or for your Facebook or for the banner of your YouTube page. They've got lots of things ready to go, so that all you have to do is drop in the content, the text, the pictures, the graphics, whatever you're going to be using. Canva also has some great YouTube videos where they talk about the design process. They talk a lot about efficacy and about the importance of not just branding, but of having a voice in our world. And I think that's kind of a cool social stance for where we are right now. And I think Canva is really taking the lead on that and doing some good things. But their workshops are also pretty user-friendly, talking about the process and talking about how to become a designer. So if we have students who are looking at that as an avenue, this is a good way to introduce technology that's something totally different than what we might normally do. Canva is also collaborative, so students can work on projects together. And what I like the best about the free version of Canva is that you can still purchase their upper level content for $1. So if you really like this one piece of clip art, this one graphic, or this one template, $1 doesn't set you back a whole lot, right? So you can go pretty far with that. I decided in the end to upgrade to the pro version because I wanted to be able to resize. When you are working with a graphic that you've built to become, I don't know, a poster, and then you want that to also become a Facebook post, and then you also want to use it in your Instagram feed, and then you also want it to become, a little frame in your profile picture, then the pro version lets you resize, and that was a big benefit to me. So I'm a big fan of that if you're able to upgrade a bit. I see Canva as useful as a way of rethinking our publicity because people are not going to be walking past the coffee store and people are not going to be at the grocery store as much as they were. And so we have to kind of think about where we're going to get the word out to our people. And so our social media presence is going to be big. Our students already have one, so they are a great voice for spreading that. Our schools already have a social media presence, so they're a great voice for spreading that. So this is a good opportunity to think about how we can start to really be digital voices and how we can publicize our work beyond a piece of paper like we're used to. I have a couple of resources for sound and music for those of you who are perhaps tackling a musical or who are looking at a production that's going to require some multi-track sound editing. I'll point you also to Chad Weddle's session on September 23rd, talking about producing a virtual musical, where you might be able to pick up some additional tips on making all of that process happen. If you're not already familiar with YouTube's audio library, it's built into your YouTube account, into your studio. They have been in the process of doing some migrating and some readjusting there, so it might look a little bit different than what you're seeing here. But their audio library has great sound effects, great background music. You can search it by whatever criteria you're looking for and come up with lots and lots of different options. I have had success using those free downloaders that you can find by Googling and make something into an MP3 to use as underscoring, to use as effects. So a nice useful tool for getting some royalty-free music, especially if you're working out of the YouTube studio. Freesound.org is another resource for sound effects, especially. This one is built by its members, so people contribute sounds that they've created and then take sounds that they need. So if you're generating your own sound effects, if you're making things from Foley or out of a studio, consider uploading them for others to use. And then you've got a nice gigantic database that you can use to download from as well. Great way to build some soundscapes into your virtual performances. That kind of background noise that you hear when you're in locations is really useful for kind of establishing that environment. So Freesound. A couple of sound editing apps. First one is called Soundation. This is good for audio mixing and for effects mixing. If you're layering things, you have multiple tracks. It's a good collaborative app for students who are working on a project together. Many of us are talking about doing radio dramas or podcasts this fall with our work. So this might be a good way to integrate those different voices or to layer those effects that you're going to need. Similarly, Soundtrack is kind of the same setup as far as editing and mixing goes. So if you're layering tracks together, or if you're inputting audio files through a MIDI connector or through some kind of live instrument, Soundtrack might be the way to go. They also have tons and tons of loops that you can use, lots of instruments that you can use. Soundtrap is also collaborative, and their free version offers unlimited projects, so you've got lots of room to grow with that. So here's another good tool for your music production, for your editing. You might then download these files and upload them into video or into Kdenlive or whatever you're using to create the final product.
Hey, Jason, we have a question real quick that came up about the YouTube audio library. Are those in the public domain? Do you know? Are they free to use? Just checking on that.
I believe they are. I think that that's part of your wonderful YouTube account, that you have access to the studio, and so you can use them. I probably should not say that they are in the public domain, meaning using them outside the YouTube studio, but I will say that it can be done, that they can be downloaded if one would choose to use them in a different format. How's that?
Sounds good. I would say YouTube has done a lot to try and get, especially to work with ASCAP and BMI, to get the audio that is used on YouTube. Like they pay the royalty fee for people if you put something in their video, and then they just work with them and tag the song. So I know that they've done a lot to make sure that the sounds that show up in videos, people have the easiest way of getting their videos up on YouTube.
That's awesome. Thanks, Griffin. Well, let's talk about some options for rehearsals and what that might look like. And I want to especially hit on some tools that you may already have working for you in your new virtual classroom. So many of us are working with Screencastify or its cousin Screencast-O-Matic. Screencastify is a good way to record and edit in short segments. It does have a Google Chrome extension that you can build right into Chrome. It does limit how much you can work with, both in editing and in time. But if you're using it as a tool for making tutorials, perhaps, you want to show your students something that you want them to work on independently, or you want to hook up your document camera and look at the script together and do a little script analysis or walk through some text that's on the page, then this might be a good way to create that. Let's think about the end game as well. When we're pushing out our content to our audience, we're going to have viewers who aren't as comfortable working with streaming services or walking through those processes. So a good opportunity to create a tutorial where you pull up the website in your Screencastify window and show your patrons how to click through to get to your stream and to get to your show. So just a good option for working with things that are already on your computer. If you're using Flipgrid, I think that this has some really good potential for our rehearsals as well. Flipgrid is a video recording tool that in the classroom lets teachers post a prompt or a question, and then students can respond in video format. Lots of professional development is discussing this as a good alternative to written responses. It's a little bit more free, it's a little bit more comfortable. It's not dependent on capitalization and punctuation and things like that. I see this as useful in our rehearsal process as a way to do some team building, for students to introduce themselves, to get to know each other, to talk about their characters, to talk about their roles in a way that they can access and share on their own. So outside of the rehearsal time, outside of that limited window, just like we're talking about flipped classrooms, we might also talk about flipped rehearsals and having our students record a little bit of scene work or a little bit of text that they've been developing and post it so that we can then give notes like we would in normal rehearsal in a flipped way in response to seeing that video. They can post it on their own time at their own pace, and then we can respond to it when we're ready as well. So just a tool that's out there to maybe rethink what rehearsals might look like in this new format. So Matt had a fantastic list of some of his takeaways of things that we might consider for how we can keep our attitudes positive and how we can be strong about all this. I will not claim a single one of these mantras. I want to say that up front, that these are all resources that I've collected from other folks this summer, but I think they're really good things for kind of knowing where we're headed with this process. Let's remember that it is still just a show, that there are a lot more important things out there right now than what we are doing. I think there are some assertive voices in our world about what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing in terms of our process. So let's kind of keep that in perspective. It's a great chance to talk about how process matters more than product, that what our students are learning from all of this is ultimately the goal, not that final video. It's what we get out of it that matters in education, not that end thing, right? And as Matt mentioned, we're all on the same team as far as success goes, that everybody wants us to be successful. So if there ever were a time when our entire audience is on our side, this is it. People are happy that we're doing something. People are happy that we're making something. People are happy that we're engaging our students. And so whatever that product ends up being, it will be successful because of the effort and the love that you've put into it. I loved somebody's mantra to ask, are we having fun? I think we have to acknowledge that a lot of our students come to theater for the social interactions. I don't know how we're going to replace rehearsal snacks, but we can certainly still have the social end of all of this and the fun side of it. So let's give ourselves that flexibility to still include those fun things or to look at how we might do them differently. My mantra for this fall, something is better than nothing. I feel that every time it comes down to making a decision, I want to make sure I'm choosing the side of doing something rather than doing nothing. Because doing nothing gets us nowhere and it doesn't further our programs. And Matt was talking about how we then become dispensable, right? So let's always be thinking about doing something. Susan Blackwell, in her speech, in a few weeks, we'll probably talk about granting grace. This is something that she included in the webinar for Now Hear This. Granting grace to ourselves, granting grace to our students, that patience that we're going to need to have with each other. This is a good opportunity to model resilience. We're going to be doing that in our classrooms every day, so why not also do it in our rehearsal spaces, of picking ourselves back up and moving forward and helping each other. And then I thought this was a lot of fun. This came from Patrick Nims in his Zoom theater session, and his mantra is, it's like the early days of TV, which, you know, here we all are. We're all in a medium that's completely new and figuring things out. And it's not the golden age yet. Maybe it will be sometime in the future, but for now, it's going to be a lot of discovery and it's going to be a lot of experiment and it's going to be a lot of failure, and all of that is totally fine. So with that in mind, oh, Matt, you want to jump in? Go for it.
No, I just love all of that, obviously. And I think it's really important that we just keep saying it. And so I appreciate your advocacy, and I love the, are we having fun? I love that. And the process is always important, but particularly now, I love that, that you took time to just be very clear about the fact that we're still in it, so that the students are part of having this social interaction. So you know, whatever the product is, there's going to be a sense of pride. Love it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks. All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty then and talk a little bit about that process. And I have some tips and ideas that I've collected to share about how to make all of this happen from the directing side, from the student side. So when we're looking at the beginning of things for our virtual auditions, think about Google Form or whatever equivalent your school is using as a way of collecting information. Google Forms has that awesome feature where students can upload video. It's that special little more spot where you change what type of response you want. So a great way for them to upload content directly into your spreadsheet. You get the link, it's ready to go. Consider adding a personal component. In one of the seminars I attended, I loved somebody's idea that let's not just ask about names and grades and interests and you know, availability and things like that, but let's also ask what our students want to get out of this experience and what do they hope will happen and what are they in this for? What are their goals here? Let's also be sure, because we are talking about broadcasting, whether that is on a live format or in something that's streaming, let's be sure that we're considering parent permission to record and publish that content. Because this is a different format than we're used to, I think it behooves us to make sure that we are looking at this from a safe vantage point for our students' privacy. My district hasn't decided what that's going to look like yet, so for now, my form just asks them to upload a selfie with their parent as a signature, and I've tried to make it clear that that is their signature until we have perhaps a method. Maybe somebody out there watching has a good suggestion to make that happen. I'm liking Sign Up Genius for scheduling auditions and later on perhaps for callbacks to set up those appointments. Not only to have the audition, but to also allow some time for conversation, to get to know the kids a little bit better than in just the little video segment that they're sending to me. This is a good way to also look at our flipped rehearsal model. If you are looking at making your rehearsals flexible, then consider, rather than a schedule where the director decides what's being covered each day, maybe we're flipping it and students are signing up for a time slot for what their goals are for that day or for what they want to cover. Maybe they sign up with a partner for their scene work, or maybe they sign up for a specific song that they're working on. One of my biggest concerns in all of this, and an area where I'm still doing a lot of exploring, is figuring out what our student leadership roles are going to look like in this new model. And I'm especially concerned about our tech kids, because I think that we have a lot of focus on what the actors are doing on the screen, but there aren't always those easy parallels to what our tech kids are doing. And I'm especially concerned about my kids in the scene shop and my kids in the costume shop, who might not be able to be there in person doing what they do best. So I've tried to brainstorm it and look for some resources on alternate leadership roles or alternate roles that students might fill to still be involved from that kind of angle of things. So obviously our assistant directors are still very much an acting kind of component, but here's a great opportunity to get some help and to get some support in the breakout rooms in Zoom, or in managing rehearsal, or just in having one-on-one conversations. We might have a second unit who's doing some additional filming besides just the, what's in the box kind of thing. Or maybe they're picking up some B-roll film that can run in the background of a song, or that can change up the picture. I'm thinking about using costume consultants. So if we are going to be pulling things out of our students' closets, perhaps, to use, then I want to make sure that I don't have two kids wearing nearly identical things, right? Or two kids wearing things that don't quite fit with each other in the world of the show. So a costume consultant might be somebody who has that conversation with the actor, or who keeps a spreadsheet, or who has some kind of book that they can track all of these decisions. Similarly, from the prop side of things, I see our props kids coordinating drop-offs, or filling from an Amazon wish list to figure out what we're going to need. Let's keep in mind that if they're sharing props between scenes, that we might need duplicates to drop off, or for students to pick up, or perhaps even matching furniture if we can go that far to get things to sync up. I think those prop transfers are a lot of fun to watch in virtual performances. I think it's cool to see somebody hand something to the person in the next window and they pick it back up. You know, it's a novelty, it's fun, it's goofy, we get it. It's part of the art, right? We might have a team of kids working on graphics or backgrounds. If you have the ability to create some virtual backgrounds or to use that green screen color key effect to put in some backgrounds, let's get some people on that who can be finding those images, who can coordinate with our costume consultants to make sure that things are going to work. That's just, I think, a nice way that we can get some good Google Drive folders going to put those resources in place. I did read this summer that Chromebooks were having difficulty with virtual backgrounds. Maybe somebody out there knows better, but that's just something you might want to consider if your school's working on Chromebooks. I'm liking the idea of having a tech coordinator, a student who is dedicated to meeting with the actor before filming starts to talk through setting up the camera, setting up the microphone, testing the video, testing the volume, making sure that everything works prior to, maybe even prior to the director arriving, maybe even prior to the filming crew, you know, pushing record, or whoever is going to make that happen. Let's get somebody on that task of finding those problem areas and figuring things out before we get there. Since we are talking about this in a very cinematic sense, let's get a location scout on the books who can take a look at where we're going to be filming in advance and can check in with the actor to make sure that the environment is clear and that it's a good spot to film. I think we're going to see a lot of backyard and bedroom theater this fall, but that doesn't mean we can't be creative about what's there. So let's get somebody thinking about what's in the environment, or how we can use things, or where we can stage things. Let's think about having a social media person, somebody who can handle the postings and handle the content that's going out. Maybe somebody to run a talkback session after the premiere, or who can do a live red carpet to get excitement going on social media. This is a good chance for somebody to do a takeover of your social media account, to plan some content in advance. You can take a look at it and then to run that through so they can have that experience. Similarly, our marketing team might be working on building that video tutorial out of WeVideo or out of Screencastify to show how to access the stream. They might be creating a trailer for our production. We might have some process videos to show how we did it. So let's think about including some of that in our schedule. You know, making sure we're thinking about getting those process videos. So we see the behind the scenes, so we see the outtakes of how we made this happen, right? Theater magic, we know what it looks like on stage, but our audience might not know how we're doing all of this virtually, right? How it's going to happen. So let's tell them, let's fill them in about what this process was like and how we got there. I see our stage managers' roles looking very different in this new environment. I see our stage managers more on the manager, less on the stage. So they might be co-hosting our Zoom sessions, they might be scheduling our appointments with our costume consultants or with our tech teams who are problem solving or setting up equipment. They might be assisting in those breakout rooms or monitoring time. If you are able to rehearse small groups in person, they might still be filming those rehearsals so that you can access that footage to review later, or to share with students who are unable to be there in person. And lots of note taking to record what we're doing, to keep the list of the shots that we're trying to get, somebody who can record which take we liked the best so that we don't have to go searching for it later, right? Okay, so just a good way to think about some other roles that might be out there for our student leaders. I want to touch a little bit on the filming process of what this might look like, especially for a pre-recorded musical. It seems the consensus right now is to start with an audio recording of a student. So they are listening to the accompaniment in one ear, and they're singing into a voice memo to get that recording of the audio that we're then going to sync up with a lip sync video. So we'll sync up the visual later. We want good Google Drive folders so that we can organize where all this is going to go. And let's also think about creating a system so that we know how to title our files, so that when we're all looking at this big list of jumbly stuff that we all know what it means, and that we can all speak the same language about where to find the files. From there, a director might be including a list of the shot needs. I've seen recommendations to include a 3/4 master shot to get the whole thing, and then a nice close-up shot to get some B-roll of things happening outdoors or sitting at a desk or drinking a cup of coffee that you can run underneath the audio or with the audio. And then think about the needs of the song too. Does it need some kind of outdoor shot? Does it need a place where they're looking at something specific? Does it need the kind of movement that you might see in a music video where you're hearing the music, but something else is happening at the same time? Where that goes then, as far as step-by-step, the actor is going to download the instrumental. So they're going to download that accompaniment track from the Google Drive that you've got set up. They're going to head to a nice quiet place to record. They might need a device to play the instrumental and a different device to record. That's a possibility. We're going to upload those vocal tracks so that we can start mixing. And then we're ready to move on to the tech side of things, to bring in the costumes, to bring in camera if you're using an external camera, to have props ready. Director at this point is sending the list of the shots that we need to get. We are scouting the location. We're making sure that the environment is going to look good in the camera. And now we're ready to film. And the actor's going to film a lip sync to that vocal track that we can then edit together, that we can layer the video and the audio together. Yeah, I hope I'm not like overwhelming you yet. And I imagine there are lots of people out there who are like, yep, I got all that. And that's awesome. Hopefully you can take out of this today just to confirm that, you know, at least 2 of us agree about where we're headed or about what we might do with this in the fall, where we're going with things. So next up, a gigantic list of tips for directors and also for students. I apologize, these are not as organized as I would like them to be, but you know, we're gonna take out of it what we can. So some tips for directors that I've kind of found from different resources and in some of those places that I mentioned at the beginning. Look for ways that we can vary the picture that's on the screen. We've heard a lot about Zoom fatigue from our students in the classroom, and the same thing is going to happen for our audiences. So let's look for ways that we can vary the picture that they're seeing, the angle, the movement, let's break up the shots, maybe with the illusion of some multi-camera work, just to give them a chance to see something different as the show's progression. Keep the number of characters on the screen small, not only to make it easy to view, but also easy to track where everybody is and who's speaking and what's happening. In rehearsal, we might think about using those breakout rooms for small groups or for scene work. Here's another really good mantra. Production is about pre-production. This is Patrick Nims from Zoom Theater. And his tip is really speaking to all of education. Like, the more you plan up front, the easier it's going to be later. So although right now we are inundated with planning, at least by putting in this work now, it should pay off later on, right? Rehearsing and filming doesn't have to be in chronological order. Matt mentioned this when he was talking about our cinematic process. So let's not think about having to film scene 1, then scene 2, then scene 3, right? Let's think about how we can sequence things. Or I love what Matt said about doing a segment and then letting go of that and moving on to what's next. Think as a director that you might turn off your camera while making notes during rehearsal. That way you are not an audience, or that your actors aren't feeling like they have to look to you because your face is there. And we all know what our faces look like sometimes when we're making notes in rehearsal, right? So, so consider turning that off. That way the actor can just do their thing as if we are not there. Think about setting up a Google Classroom for the company, or whatever that parallel might be in your school district. The nice thing about, we're a Google Classroom district, obviously, so that's kind of why I'm hitting that. But what I like about it is that our students are used to receiving notifications from Google Classroom. So a Google Classroom from our company is going to send them the same kind of notifications with our schedule or with updates or with announcements or things like that. If you have access to an external webcam, something that can maybe be a little better quality than the camera that's integrated in your computer, awesome. But I've also seen some great advice to always go with the speed of the video over the quality of the video. So rather than having a lag, you know, where people's faces freeze or where it gets kind of jumpy, a lower quality video is still going to have the same effect, but be a lot easier to watch. If you are working with multicam shots or aiming to get some of that in, and you have access to multiple computers for your students, that might be a good approach as far as sending them out and letting everybody log into Zoom. Or you can certainly consider recording from Zoom while everybody is in view. And I hear that at some point Zoom is going to give us a function to reorder the windows. So hopefully that's a way. For now, I think they're sorted according to who arrives in the room. So hopefully we'll have that feature where we can think of these. Matt mentioned this, and I want to echo it because I think it's a beautiful tip, that our traditional opening night with virtual performances is not the same kind of event. So let's give ourselves the permission to take the time that we need to prepare and present it when it's ready. You'll know when it's getting close, and you can set a date, as Matt said, to announce to your audience and to let people know when it's going to happen. But let's not assume on September 1st that we know exactly when in November our final product is going to be done. Let's give ourselves the time to be flexible and to create what we want to create. And then I feel this is incredibly important, that let's acknowledge the loneliness of all of this, and let's let social time be part of our schedule and part of our rehearsals. In my professional development today, we talked about burning the first 4 minutes of every class period in connecting to students and talking to students and in just letting them have space with each other. And I think that works in our rehearsal rooms too, of giving them that space to connect to each other and to talk to each other and to see each other, and then get to the work and let the work happen when it's ready. A few additional tips for directors, and then I'll get to some tips for students. Let's think about scheduling shorter rehearsals. We all know that the work we do on Zoom is a lot more draining. It takes a lot more focus to look into that camera and to zoom around and look at all the different faces that are on your screen. So that's going to be true for our rehearsals as well. So we might think about adjusting our expectations for how much time we're going to need for things. Let's not give up the table work and the rapport that we spend at the beginning of our process. That can happen just as easily in Zoom. We can still have those discussions. We can still do that analysis. We can still talk about that background. We can still do the dramaturgy the same way that we would as if we were in a rehearsal room. If you're more advanced on the end of Zoom things, you might consider, when the time comes, hiding your non-video participants, pinning a video to keep it where you want it, or even renaming the name that's in the Zoom window to a character, or giving it a name that's more that matters more for your production. It's going to match better. One of the webinars this summer mentioned. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I just, because we're talking about the some of the Zoom stuff, so I wanted to grab a couple of the questions real quick. Bob, I want to address yours first. So I did feel like for starting out, Zoom was by far, for me, made the most sense in terms, because there aren't a ton of bells and whistles. So you're going to put together a pretty inventive, creative story that comes from what your students are able to do in this box. And then there's not the pressure of adding all the sound effects and all the all the graphics and that kind of stuff. Now that I'm ready for production number 2, I am ready to give myself enough time, and I know what skills I need from students to do the graphics and to move on to step 2. Bob, I want to, are you doing a live performance, or do you want to do something that you record and then premiere live? I don't know if you can put that in the chat, or just
hold on. I can actually unmute people, I believe.
Oh,
let's see. I'm going to see, Bob. I'm going to see if I can allow you to talk. I pressed allow to talk. There we go. Bob, you can talk to us now.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm not really sure about what's the best way to go forward. I mean, I want to give them an opportunity to do something live if it's possible, but I mean, yeah, I was watching a couple productions of She Kills Monsters, the Virtual Realms one and stuff, and you do run into issues of lag and glitching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They are trying to go live online. So, I mean, I think that's also the feedback I've been receiving from parents too.
Yeah.
Is like they're missing that opportunity of being able to do this live together, and by pre-recording a lot of the stuff, which I know we're going to pre-record some things. I guess right now, is it better to just pre-record everything and stream the final product, or is it better to try and have some components pre-recorded and then still try and do some like Zoom scenes?
So if you or a student is savvy and ready to be stage manager of Zoom, you can give different people different responsibilities and let them like pin a certain video. It's pretty high stress trying to do it. What I did for She Kills Monsters is I went into it wanting to do it live because I feel that too. I wanted them to do it. When I started the rehearsal process, and I had 2 kiddos whose internet was never good. It was never good. And I said, well, I'm going to do nothing but get older by trying to do this stuff. So I said, we're recording it. Like I said, I would have done scene by scene if I was going to do this again, but we chunked it up. We did actor rehearsals. And then we decided to make it very campy so that we weren't making excuses. We weren't trying to pretend that we were better than we were. So we decided to have a lot of fun with it. Then when we got the video together and we did the editing, and I'll show the first like minute slide of what I did so you can see all the different aspects the kids did. But I had kids from the ensemble and the crew host it live. And so they got on, said who they were, what they were doing. And then during the show, they ran a live chat about, oh, this was my favorite scene, or they would generate questions or try to get thought going. It was awkward, especially opening night, because they didn't know, because it was different. And so we had to jumpstart it a little bit, but it at least gave some excitement for them on like they were live and whatever they did in the moment mattered. And they were able to sort of narrate the show and have, poke fun at themselves or tell inside jokes that happened during the filming or something like that.
Right. They were doing a commentary track.
Right.
That kind of makes sense. That's kind of cool too.
And it gave parents a reason to watch more than once because the film was the same, but the response was different. And it also allowed the kids to still have like a starring evening or night. But when I knew that I had the film, the story was beginning, middle, and end. We were telling a story. There was such a weight off my shoulders, and I just turned that into like, guys, I am so proud of you. This is how exciting that we just did this. And, and in the end, then they all had the trophy, the film to keep and look back at and laugh at someday, but really proud in the moment of what we were able to do.
Okay.
So
Bob,
I also, I'm so sorry. The only other thing I would say, Bob, is what I've tried to plan is like live cabarets and performances.
Right.
So we kind of can the shows, but I am finding other things that they can do live. Also, student directed one acts, I'm encouraging them to go live so that they're not stressed out about editing features. And so that is also providing some of that live entertainment, but still allowing the productions or the main stage shows to have some polish that maybe because I'm not as comfortable doing it on spur of the moment yet.
Bob, what I was going to say is just to direct you to someone that is doing this kind of work that you're looking at. Projects with Jason, I believe it's projectswithjason.com. I cannot remember his last name off the top of my head right now, but he's a Broadway stage manager with credits including the latest To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway. And they have just launching, trying to work with schools if you've heard about them or look at their website. And they did a webinar that is on their YouTube page the other night that kind of blended people live. They had video clips of work that they had done. So it is possible, but the one thing with Zoom is the more features you want, the more money you have to invest in it. So that's the thing where it takes your production costs up. But that, you know, we're learning that as a board as we were trying to put this Zoom together, these sessions. But yeah, it is possible, but I'm not necessarily sure that anyone on this meeting right now actually knows the best for that. But I would direct you to projects with Jason, because that's what they're trying to provide to schools going into this school year.
Yeah, this is just such a huge unknown right now too. And I know it's going to be a lot of trial by fire. And it's just, I know we're all in it together. We're all in a lot of the similar Facebook groups and stuff. So I would just say, like, if other individuals end up also discovering new ways and positive ways of making the experience really special for the students still, that would be awesome. I'm more than happy to throw my info out too. And I know we all are in the same group together, but yeah, it's crazy. I'm just trying to wrap my head around. I know it's possible, but I'm trying to also, most importantly, keep it as stress-free as possible.
Yeah, don't shy away from that. Don't overcomplicate, because I do that sometimes, right? With our main stage shows, like some years I'll just be like, all right, fine, let's do the Disney musical, you know,
right.
And you're like, let's do it. We'll have a blast. Once it's over, it's great. But I have really given myself permission to just like, let's tell stories, guys. Like, what are you into? What do I want to listen to them talk about? What do they want to talk about? And I've also found, and I know every district is different, I've also found there has been some forgiveness in terms of pushing the envelope a little bit. I don't think I would have looked at She Kills Monsters if I was doing it live and in person, but over the summer, there was this need to get personal and let students tell stories and get some of their emotion out, because it was an emotional summer, and my district afforded me that. And the parents were excited because, you know, there's some identity issues in She Kills Monsters, and the parents were appreciative of that too.
Yeah.
And so that could be an avenue to explore.
I know. I had the exact opposite reaction with the district, where I was like, I was living in this very dark area and that's where I wanted to go. And they were like, no, we want something light. And I was like, great. But yeah, I get it. Yeah. So that's where Alice came from. And I'm like, we could still twist that into something dark and fun still too.
And you could do a lot of fun stuff with green screens and and sheets in terms of, you know, psychedelic backdrops, and, you know, a lot of fun with that.
What is I would say another question is the importance of a hardwired connection versus a Wi-Fi connection for the performers, whether it's online or not. Are you guys trying to have them all be like plugged right in, like they have their Ethernet cable and they're plugged right in? Was there any trial and error with that at all?
Most of my students are on a laptop or a phone.
Right.
A few of them are on desktops. I don't think many of them are hardwired in. What I did, though, is I spent the money on a booster for my router. So, so that my hub, you know, where I'm operating from, is kicking with as much speed as possible. Like I said, the kiddos that I had that were struggling with their bandwidth and it was always lagging and always freezing, I decided to go the film route right away, and I shied away from the conversation about, so talk to me about your internet connection. Now, going the next step, I'm ready to do that. But I froze a little bit in terms of, like, I didn't have the answer to fix it if they were like, oh, well, we have a really weak internet speed. I didn't know how to fix it, and I didn't want to make anyone feel like they couldn't produce. So I was just tentative about that. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I don't want to suck up everyone's time. So totally, I know you guys have other questions too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Good luck.
Justin, can you get Katie Mitchell and Katie Arbor to have their mics on?
I am working on it right now. I appreciate everyone's kind of patience because I've spent the last 72 hours. Sorry. Katie Arbor, I'm promoting you to a panelist because you're in our organization and that's all it'll let me do. So welcome to the panel. And then what was the other name? Katie Mitchell.
Katie Lauren Powell Mitchell.
Okay. But I've been learning Zoom. I've never used it until the last 48 hours, like on this end. I've only attended. So I've been doing my best to try and learn these features pretty quickly.
Awesome.
So Katie, I'll start with your question about ticket prices. I was worried about it because I didn't know how to do it fairly. You know, I know a lot of our parents will come see every show and pay full price, and they love that. But I did feel like this is certainly a different time. So what I did for She Kills Monsters, I also did my first show on a bare budget. It was like, how do you turn your, your closet into a fort? Like, it was all about imagination. So we spent money on scripts, on rights, on royalties. I had a small Amazon budget so I could send stuff out to kids as we needed it. And then we made homemade costumes and we tried to have a lot of fun with that. So, but what I did at the end of the day is I set up a tiered ticket. I did a $10 individual link. And so that is just, person individual all by themselves buying a ticket. I did a household link for $25, which I said it was like the recommended. Like, if you want to give your all to the theater department, everyone should buy a $25 ticket to help us out. It also helps families who, like if there's 4 people in the family, they're not going to buy 4 individual tickets. So to give them a break in price, but the ability to not just pay for an individual link. And then I did a $50 and $100 for people that wanted to donate. And for She Kills Monsters, the $50 was a warrior and the $100 was a dungeon master. And so families had the opportunity to donate or to give more if they wanted to. So yes, I definitely, and then I ended up making money. I held my breath till the end, but we ended up turning a profit. So that was really, really good.
Nice. So so then for those tickets, just to clarify, so if they paid their $10, they got that link. And that link was available for the premiere night, or was it available for the premiere night and all of those other nights where you had the commentary?
We did a unique link per night.
Okay.
And so, and we still had parents that came every night because they wanted to hear the kids talk and stuff like that. But with most of my families in the community spending the $25 family ticket, the fact that they only came one night ended up balancing out at the end. And they, by doing a unique link on Saturday and Sunday, my last 2 performances, I gave the link out to the actors ahead of time, like an hour before curtain. And I said, give it to all your friends that can't afford it. Like, let's just fill this place. I want you guys to feel seen. Because once I knew that we had the money in the bank and we had made a little bit, I was like, let's get the people in the theater now. And so being able to see who's coming to the show and how much money I've made helped me do a little bit more in the charity vein. And it got more kids to watch it who weren't willing to spend, their credit card $10. But I waited till the very last minute, but it did help our attendance at the end.
Awesome. And then last question, and then I'll let the other person go on. So what system did you use? Did you have an online ticketing system that
the webinar feature of Zoom does have a ticket sales. My school district has had a contract through locallevelevents.com. Which is similar to like the Brown tickets and all of the various ones we do. And so what I did is every 24 hours before the show, I cut off ticket sales. Then I got the list of emails of people who had purchased tickets. And then I sent an email out with our digital program. And that was the other benefit, is that was the way they got the program, is if they bought a ticket, they got the link, they had the program. And then everyone who got the link from someone else, then they just got to see the show. So I didn't do any filters or password, so that I had no way of having mom not share it with her family. I did that on the honor system. And it worked out this time. I don't know if it would work out for everyone. I was nervous. But in the end, I think people got to see the show and we still made money. So I try not to question it.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll send a reminder as well, everybody, that your licensing house may have their own policy about which streaming service you can use.
That's very true. Yes.
So I know for what we're hoping to do for our fall show, our license includes show ticks for you. I think I don't quote me on that, but it's written into our license, and our license is set for streaming only, not for any kind of live performance or not for multiple. So our license specifically tells us you can have 3 streams between date 1 and date 3, right? So just please know that this isn't necessarily a free-for-all. If you're working with something in the public domain, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier, but your license might determine what your route is.
Yes, that's very true. And actually, this is a good segue into Katie Arbor's piece, because I know High School Musical was canceled. And that's what I was going to ask you, Katie. You were asking about the platform and stuff. Is there a stipulation in your contract about it being, any part of it being live, or is that completely up to you?
There I am. It's up to us at this point. I reached out to MTI and explained to them that we were doing it all in-house as far as the videotaping component, and that was only going to be, it was going to be linked out and streamed to parents, similar to what you did, Matt, with She Kills Monsters, and Jason, what you have done with ticket sales. Our biggest obstacle right now is knowing which one of these platforms to use. So for example, we have all of the equipment to videotape. So we're going to take all the students for High School Musical and put them in our high school in all the different places, socially distanced, and we're redoing choreography and all that stuff to videotape each scene. But after we're done with that, what is our best platform to then get it uploaded and do all the sound mixing? And I have a former student who's sound savvy, who's going to pre-record the students, so they're lip syncing. So we already had that all taken care of. So
they might have an idea of a platform that they like, but it does sound like to get started like you are, to take the links that Jason had on WeVideo, it might really suit your needs, because one of the things I like about WeVideo is, even though I needed help and guidance, it was a great place. It was a great platform for me to start learning.
Right.
And so I built my competency, whereas if I would have jumped into a different platform, it would have been, oh crap. It's not my brain.
WeVideo is very, very user friendly, which is obviously a positive. Again, what you both said early on tonight about really letting the students, take on more of these roles because they're into it. And we have so many students that are like, they might even be more excited doing this as like a movie than they were on stage. I think we all know our students are really grasping for everything. And also, to the question prior, if I can just piggyback on that with the tickets, most of the online ticket platforms are doing some sort of virtual link, component at this point, because I keep on getting emails daily. Use me, use me.
Yeah. Oh, we lost your audio, Katie. I do think, I will say with the virtual, I lost my train of thought, so I apologize about that. Did we get you back, Katie?
Was I glitching?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where I stopped, but regardless.
Well, about the constant emails.
Yes. Regardless, if you're using any online ticket platform, most of them now are doing some sort of virtual connection.
Yeah.
So just reach out to whoever your person there is as your contact.
And I do think it's critical. This is what I was going to say to everyone, to make sure we're not giving it away. I think that's the other really important thing right now, is that we are still valuing our students and their work, even if it's a pay what you want or donate what you want or whatever, that we're still generating revenue, because that'll be the other thing when we do come back, if everyone's like, well, it was free last month. And we definitely don't want to get anyone into that, sort of frame of mind.
And to the point, talking about licensing and hosting and all that stuff, the 2 sessions, if you saw the scroll at the beginning that were listed, we have on September, I believe either the 2nd or the 9th, one of the sessions is going to be with one licensing house, and then the one that we're adding in October is with another licensing house that's going to talk about kind of how they're handling licensing in the pandemic. So we'll get 2 opinions coming up where they're going to kind of present, here's how we're handling this. And so we are trying to provide that too. So stick with us through all 8 sessions and we'll try and get to that.
All right. Well, do we want to ask any more questions? I would love to share, let's see if I can do this here real quick. Just to give everyone an idea of what I did with She Kills Monsters. I just want to give you the very first just minute of it. Let's see.
Hey, Matt, did you click the button to share computer audio? Because I think you need to click that when you...
Well, I apologize.
It's okay. It's all it's a learning curve we talked about.
Yeah, right. Still the same story?
Yep, still no audio. I'm trying to remember where I saw that, where you can click. I think it's when you share. There's a spot where it says to share the computer audio, but I saw it and I didn't need it tonight, so I don't remember where it is.
Oh, got it.
In a time before Facebook, Worlds of Warcraft, and massive multiplayer online RPGs, there once existed simply a game. Forged by the hands of nerds, crafted in the minds of geeks, and so advanced in its advanciness it would take 8 whole editions just to contain all its mighty geekery. And here in the land of Ohio, during the year of 2019, one of the rarest types of geeks walked the earth. A dungeon master without fear, prejudice, or a penis. This nerd was a girl nerd, one of the rarest types of nerds of them all, and her name was Tilly Evans. But this story isn't about her. This is a story about her sister. Agnes Evans grew up average. Average height, average weight, average build. She grew up in the average town of Athens, Ohio with her average parents and her little sister Tilly. Tilly, however, was anything but average. Though the 2 young girls shared the same parentage, they had very little in common. Agnes, being of average disposition, was more into typical things such as boys, music, and popular television programs, while her sister Tilly became fascinated with the dark arts, magic, dragons, and the vanquishing of pure evil.
Have you seen my phone? Miles is supposed to call me.
I left it in a shoebox on your desk.
What?
Be gone, loser boyfriend! You shall annoy me no more!
Tilly.
You're welcome.
As average Agnes grew and grew, she became more and more engrossed with transcending her seemingly permanent state of averageness. However, frustrated by seeing her sister's unique brand of awesomeness, during her junior year of high school, average Agnes made one grand wish.
Wish I didn't have such a geeky sister.
And so, the gods answered her wish. by smiting down her young sibling in a car crash.
No.
But fear not, adventurers. This isn't the story of that tragedy. No, this is the story of how Average Agnes finally learned to fight and kill monsters.
So, you know, we had a lot of fun getting the students together, figuring out how to turn their homes into what they were doing. I learned that I have to have a conversation with students about what's behind them in their bedrooms in terms of like, I'm fine if it's a little messy, but some of them just have no concern about that. Then we had the opportunity to have students that are into drawing and painting. They were able to find some things to do, some computer graphics. They were able to figure out some things to do. I had a student that wanted to try a little shadow puppetry. It was a valiant first effort. I was really proud of them. And just all things that we just started like learning and combining. And so again, it was just a source of pride at the end. And something where everyone was able to point and say, I did that, I made that. And then I will I'll let Jason have it over again.
It's so cool to see that, Matt. That's a lot of fun. I don't have a whole lot more left, everybody, so I'll just kind of burn through it. That way we can still get on to some questions if we want to finish out whatever we've got. So I'll finish out a few tips for directors, and then I'll hit you with some tips for students, and then call it done on this side. Think about the cost of your equipment is probably going to be about what you were paying for your sets and costumes anyway. So if you have that budget earmarked, consider using it for the kind of equipment like webcams or external microphones that you can then keep around for the future. Directors might consider keeping the pace going. Lag time on Zoom tends to be about a half a second. And so especially when there are already pauses built into a script or built into the direction, that can accumulate very quickly. Your graphics team might look at splitting a single image into two so that it looks like students who are next to each other in Zoom are in the same environment, just extends visually from one into the next. Directors might also consider that your blocking is going to look a little bit different, obviously, because you're in this box now. The rule of thumb that I found is that 8 feet of depth gives you about 12 feet of width visually. So if you're looking to fill that whole space, that's about where we're at. If you are working with a green screen, consider having some cheap desk lamps or clip lights around that you can light the bottom of the screen to help take care of those fuzzy edges that sometimes turn up on Zoom. If your script has shared lines, a director this summer noted that it's helpful to split those up so that you're not trying to sync up two people speaking at the same time. And then you might also include awareness of the space in your warm-ups. Consider taking the session with Gay Jones in a few weeks. Gay has some fantastic tips about how to use the Zoom window as a rehearsal space and getting some warm-ups building. So she's got some great tips for making that happen. This is the end of what I've got here, some tips for actors, maybe a guide that you give out to students or some just common ideas or common terms that you can share. Encourage your students to leave space, dead air at the beginning and end of their recording so that you can edit that down later and so that you have room for transitions. I found in working with WeVideo that WeVideo clips off the part sometimes that is still part of my video if students ended right at the end of their sentence. I encourage all of my students this summer, and with mixed successes, to be aware of the lighting and where it's coming from. That if you've got a light behind you, you're going to look like a shadow on the screen. So think about where we can get that lighting. Find out from your director whether you are looking at the camera or whether you're not. This is our fourth wall now. So we have to think about whether we're going to break that fourth wall or whether we want to have it disconnected. A tip for your students, turn off ceiling fans. Don't record while there's a dryer running or other things that might make noise. And a similar tip to that this is a great time to ask your parents and your siblings and your pets to have a little backyard time while you're filming, to keep a nice quiet environment and to not have, you know, that cat walking across in the middle of this really intense moment that you're trying to build. Matt, you mentioned this, and I think this is my most favorite tip, is to look behind you before you start recording. Make sure that your environment is acceptable for an audience, and that you as the director are okay with whatever you're putting out there. I had a lot of trouble with students recording on their phones this spring, recording in phone mode, and that meant when I was inputting in the video, which is 16:9, that we'd get that weird, you know, 2 black bars on the side. And if the project works for that, great. But if you're trying to create something that's cinematic, then we want to start with some content that's already in that landscape mode. Most likely our audience is going to be viewing this on a computer screen or on a TV screen. We certainly have phone viewers, but most of our audience is going to be looking at it on a horizontal landscape mode screen and not something that's vertical. Let's remind our students about their spacing so that they can frame themselves on the screen so that they're not sitting at a weird angle. We can use some household tape to place some marks on the floor so they know where they're supposed to stand or where they're going for their blocking. We can put some tape on the wall to give them an eye line, a reference point to look at, especially if you're trying to get 2 actors to look at each other side by side. That can be a really useful tool to line that up. And then also think about measuring back from the camera for a consistent depth. Especially if you're trying to make it look like 2 students are in the same environment, 2 actors are in the same environment, then you want to work with that depth from the camera just to get a good visual. That is the end of my massive list of tips, and I thank you all for taking it in. But I will turn it back to Matt and Justin for whatever questions we have out there still.
As far as I can tell, I think we've kind of covered, whoa, every time someone changes, I lose my screen. We've covered all the questions so far. If there's anyone else that has any questions they want to add to the Q&A real quick, and then I can unmute you. Or if not, we kind of went a little bit, well, 30 minutes over, but you know, this was our first time, so we appreciate you guys kind of working with us and giving us that grace there. It's been good information, but if there aren't any other questions, then I think it might be time to sign off. So unless any pop up or someone raises their hand to let me know, I think we'll just go ahead and thank everyone for coming. And we will see you all next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.